As I always do, I want to offer greetings to those of you who tune in on the YouTube channel. And one more time I'll say hello to those of you who are here with us this evening. Weirdly, this is not a morning offering, but we're here on a Wednesday evening for what I hope will be the second annual Caron Board of Trustees offered chapel service. So I'm a little nervous, but I always am. That's fine. We'll get through this. Another thing that's special about tonight is when this first was introduced a year ago in August, I decided to add a topic to my calendar of topics. And I decided this year, since I had the option, I would do that again. So I'm going to address a subject I've never addressed at chapel before, which is, tonight's subject is imperfection. So if you have any imperfections, relax. You're right at home. And I might have a few myself. Imperfection is a subject area that has gotten a lot of attention, not only in recovery circles, but in popular media in recent years. And so you might have come across it if you're a person in recovery, or you might have come across it if you're just reading what I would call like the general spiritual and motivational literature of our time. And the two authors that I'm making vague reference to are Ernie Kurtz and Brene Brown. So Ernie Kurtz is a much-loved author of the recovery tradition, sort of one of AA's great gurus who passed away, I think, maybe in 2019. And Ernie Kurtz's book, co-written with a woman named Catherine Ketchum, is called The Spirituality of Imperfection. It might be for sale in the bookstore. If it's not, it should be. It's a recovery classic. And what happens when you read this book is you are taken on a journey through a variety of people's stories that Ernie and Catherine are very clear come from AA, from their AA experience. And the kind of gist of the book as you make your way through these stories is the realization not only that human beings are imperfect, but that in recovery, humility and gratitude are key ingredients of the success of recovery. So, and that goes along, I think, with the spirit of one day at a time. And it's a lovely treatise, and one of my favorite things. I always keep a copy of it, and I'm constantly loaning a copy out to a patient here or there, so then I have to buy another one because they never come back, because our patients are imperfect. And we don't have a perfect system of returning books. So, so the trustees have to allow me to spend that money. But the other book, Brene Brown, probably many of you have known of her. She is just all over various sort of contexts of communication, and has had a tremendous imprint and influence. The central subject that launched her visibility was shame, and she's gone on to not only speak about human development and resilience and corporate culture and a variety of things, but she has a book, one of her many books, is called The Gifts of Imperfection. And as paradoxical as that sounds, it's also a lovely book. And the big thesis there is that imperfection is an essential human attribute, and that we live in a crazy time where we're encouraged in 100,000 different ways to mask our imperfection, and whether it's Botox or a carefully engineered Facebook profile or whatever it is that you may have done or seen other people do. This is a toxic set of behaviors that we're being lured into that cost us a tremendous amount as a human community. The striving to be perfect is just tragic in what it's doing to us. So, as I was getting ready for this message this week, I watched a video, a lovely short video on imperfection. I even thought about showing it tonight, but the writers of the video proposed that human beings have basically two choices. And the first choice is this striving to be perfect thing in one or more areas of our lives. And the thought is that in the striving to be perfect, what we're hoping to get out of that is approval. And this is a subject that I really do relate to. As a child of a family of dysfunction, I had a lot of this. I don't know if any of you have perfectionistic traits, but don't raise your hands because the people behind you won't be able to see. So it's really common, and I think it's especially common in an addictive frame because of the paradox that we're trying to attain something that's incongruent with the reality, which is that we are fundamentally imperfect. So I learned about an art form called kintsugi. Do any of you know what kintsugi is? I will encourage your hands. Kintsugi is interesting. The formal title in Japanese is kintsukuroi. I had not really known about it, and then I was working in another environment in New York in 2019, and one of my dear friends and colleagues, a guy named Bruce Singer, had this beautiful vase on his shelf, and it was blue with this like cracked gold lining. And I asked him about it, because I thought it was like the only thing that he had of any decorative value. And he explained to me that the art form involved the repairing of broken ceramics with precious metals as the filament. So grouts or glues or epoxies are mixed with gold, platinum, or silver, and then the pieces are carefully reconstructed. So you could have a fairly inexpensive piece of pottery that suddenly sells for thousands and thousands of dollars because in the rendering of it, and they can be really quite striking and beautiful. So, and it's the imperfection of the brokenness that suddenly becomes the very inherent thing that we admire about the piece. So I'm married. My wife, at one time, I thought she was perfect. Please don't tell her I'm going to admit that this is slightly shifted, but it has slightly shifted. And now I want to make the claim that she's perfectly imperfect, but I realize I'm still pushing it. So anyway, my beloved Judy sometimes is curious about my work, not always. And I was using the illustration of kintsugi as a thought about meeting our patients in their brokenness and helping them put themselves back together in a way that would be yet more beautiful than they found themselves when they landed here in a crumbled pile of shards. So I guess she was really paying attention because at Christmas that year, among the various boxes, because we are subject to the materialism of our society, and so we always say we're going to do a small Christmas, but then there's way too much. And the last box that I was to open, I could tell there was something going on about it, because you know when you're opening the special gift or whatever. And she's like, no, save that one for last. And I'm opening the box, and I brought the gift that she got me with me tonight, and it's this. It's a heart-shaped kintsugi. And if I don't show you the side of it, you may not realize that whoever broke it pretty good. So this is a tender and lovely piece of this artwork, and it means all the more to me because of who gave it to me. And I love that it's a heart too, because I'm trying to make a connection here about intimacy and love that I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, let me say that, and then I'll say the other thing. So, if we hide our brokenness and experience affirmation in the Jane Jetson, wasn't that her name? Judy Jetson. Oh, it's a Judy. So, Judy, and if you didn't grow up on the Jetsons, I apologize. It's a childhood comic strip from my youth.
Jane.
What?
It was Jane.
It was Jane.
Judy was the daughter.
Judy was the daughter. Okay, see, there are experts in the room. So, other people who have this proclivity for these weird comics. So the Jetsons was this funny comic, and anyway, one of the things I remember, because I remember it like it was not yet possible, but today it's so possible with Snapchat filters and all those kinds of things. But Jane would get on this like basically a Zoom call or FaceTime, and yet she could push a button and the face that she would present was perfect while she was in curlers and looked a complete mess. And I believe that's like sadly where many of us were functioning before we get to Caron, is that we were masquerading as intact human beings, or had been attempting to masquerade as intact human beings as one after another of the sort of pieces of the puzzle fall. And eventually it gets bad enough that you end up here, and some people are like, I don't know if I really need to be here. And I'm like, dude, if this was cancer, you would never say that to the doctor. Like, because, you're like, I wish I would wait until I metastasized before you did the surgery. Like that, no, we don't do that, right? So wherever you are, however far down the scale you have gone, I'm going to tell you that's enough. You have hurt enough, you have suffered enough, you have broken enough, you are cracked enough that it's a lovely moment in which to begin to glue yourself back together. And you need not get another DUI. You need not ruin another relationship. You need not puke at another Christmas, And, yes, I did. So, a long, long time ago, this tragic reality is that if we are presenting a masked identity and we receive this approval that we're masking ourselves in order to get, then the person behind the mask experiences a cringe, a shame, because we know that you're admiring the mask, and we're afraid if we pull the mask down and you were to see the real thing, you would have a different reaction, right? So this is the deconstruction of one of the fundamental needs of a human being, which is to be loved. And I hope you're hearing me. What it means is that if you are not willing to let people see you as an imperfect being and trying to sort of mask some glaring imperfection, and people love you as the fake you, then the real you will cringe and wither in a kind of bitter and despairing loneliness. I realize I'm probably overly characterized, but I'm telling you, I've watched it happen. I've watched it happen in my own soul. And it's an awful, awful misfire where the intent coming at you is affirmation and the reception is degradation of your personal integrity. And you end up worse off than you started with the very thing you're asking for. You just want to be loved. And the love that you're being offered is taking you down. It's a mess. And what is the antidote? The antidote is the flasher, sorry. But I mean, it's to self-reveal. This is Brene Brown's answer. This is Ernie Kurtz's answer. This is any person who's willing to sort of give it some thoughts answer is that the only way to experience authentic love in the way that we need it is to be authentic in the experience of it. And to allow people to love us as we truly are, not as we think we should be. And as I said that, I cannot help but think of the guy whose portrait's on the wall, because this was one of his favorite stories. He used to tell a story about a guy named Michael, and Michael was a patient who came here, ended up being one of the very first people who was known to have been here, been HIV positive, way back in the early area of HIV. The first labeling of that illness as such, and when so many people would soon die from it, and the therapy that Father Bill introduced for Michael was to have him go to one after another instance, with a culminating instance being in front of the chapel, and to stand with the microphone in front of the chapel and say, my name is Michael, I'm alcoholic, I'm gay, I'm HIV positive. Will you love me as I am and not as I think I should be? And you know what happened that day? Standing ovation. Right? The experience of authentic love. In a person whose forecast was rejection, because they had perceived the world as rejecting them without ever giving people a chance to love them as they were. My old friend Father Bill was a genius at story and at small statements that captured a variety of different things. And many of his aphorisms are in the room here around the things I've been saying with way too many words. We will love you until you can love yourself. Putting families back together, restoring intimacy, This was, in his understanding, this was the essential nature of what happened at the Caron Magic Mountain experience, was the restoration of authentic love and intimacy. And you can't have it without risking revelation of your imperfectness. So I was contemplating all this stuff. I went to the Goodwill in Robisonia, which is right down the hill here yesterday. And for $1.99, I bought a piece of ceramics. And I had already gotten some art supplies, some epoxy and some other stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll give this a go. So, this is my gift to myself. This is my little kintsugi. Marguerite lovingly says, "Oh." I'm intrigued by, first of all, how difficult this project is, and I'm just one of these naive people who's like, "I should surely do that." But then I sent a picture of it to a friend I've been telling I was going to do this, actually my hairdresser. Her name's Melanie, she's awesome. And she texts me back, she said, "Well, are you happy with it?" Which I guess means she's not, but as I'm preparing my response, I started thinking, why do I want to have this artwork that's all about imperfection be perfect? Apparently I've missed the frickin' point. So yes, I'm happy with it. Damn it, I'm happy with it. It didn't fall apart on me. And it's got lovely gold streaks in it. And it's a beginning. This to me is the Caron patient. We are, the trustees are the shepherds, the stewards of the island of misfit toys. I don't know if you know that. I had to look it up, but it's a red-nosed reindeer reference. And there's an elf whose name I've just forgotten. It's a misfit elf. Hermie, thank you. And somebody knows the story better than I do. But I've never, that island of misfit toys, I call it, to me, is the place of authenticity. I used to serve a church where we bragged about being a land of misfit toys. And it was fascinating to see how many people flocked to be a part of that worshiping community for that very reason. They had been in Sunday after Sunday of churches after churches where people tried to polish themselves up and didn't want the joys and concerns to include somebody standing up. I'm embarrassed to tell you, but I served a church at one time where one of the trustees of the church came up to me and said, "We would really prefer that you not disclose you're an addict in recovery because it's setting a bad example for our children." She was dead serious. Helen was her first name. I remember her really well. And I made another mistake. I let a young boy in that church serve up the green beans at the oyster supper. And that was Helen's job. And I got like a call from the district superintendent because I was disrespecting, an invested family in the church. Come on. How could a religious movement, grounded as it is supposed to be the Christian movement, in this peasant rabbi and his extraordinary graciousness to imperfect people, get so far off where it's supposed to be? So, I'm pretty excited about Caron. I love being here. I'm really grateful. And one of the things I think is the most exciting news in the recent years of Caron's evolution is that we have once again become insurance friendly. And so there are people who get to come to this place for $2,500, for $4,000, for nothing if they've already satisfied co-pays. It's just bizarre to me that, because when I first started working here, you couldn't get in the door without something north of $15,000. Even if we were doing as much as we could to reduce the cost of access to treatment. So we have a lot more misfit toys that can make it in the door than we used to. And I salute the trustees for helping make that happen. Because this is a place of reality, of authenticity, of where the broken began to be put back together. So I'm excited to have a chance to deliver a message about that, and I'm definitely going to add imperfection to the cycle of topics, because I think it's one that belongs in there. Thanks for coming tonight. God bless.